The children ignored their old father, but the safe in the basement held a fortune. William Parker felt his chest tighten when he heard the door slam shut once again. It was the third child leaving the house that morning without even glancing in his direction. At 68, he had grown used to the indifference, but it still cut like a knife to the heart. The house that once buzzed with life now echoed only with his slow footsteps down the hallway. Jennifer, Robert, and Christine had their own families, their own problems, and apparently no time left for the old father who had raised them alone after their mother passed away 15 years earlier. "Dad, I'm heading out," Christine called from the door, not waiting for a reply. The sound of her high heels quickly faded down the sidewalk. William sighed and returned to the kitchen, where his coffee sat cooling on the table. 3 empty cups waited for children who no longer sat down to talk. He put them away in the cupboard one by one, feeling the weight of loneliness in every motion. The house in Denver had been bought with great sacrifice 40 years ago when he was still a young construction worker. Every brick, every tile bore the sweat of his calloused hands. Now his children saw it only as a place to sleep between their busy lives. As he washed his own cup, William watched the street through the kitchen window. Neighbors greeted each other. Children played in the small garden next door. Everyone seemed to have someone to talk to, except him. The phone rang, breaking the morning silence. With renewed hope, William dried his hands on the dish towel and answered. "Hey, Dad." It was Jennifer, his eldest daughter. "Listen, I can't come over today. Tyler's running a fever and I need to take him to the doctor." "That's all right, sweetheart. Is he feeling really bad?" "Hi, it's nothing serious, just a cold. Anyway, I've got to run. Talk later." The call ended before he could ask about his grandson or offer help. William stood frozen, holding the silent phone, feeling that familiar ache of being a burden in his own children's lives. He decided it was time to check the basement. He hadn't been down there in weeks, and the recent rains might have caused moisture problems. Grabbing a flashlight from the kitchen drawer, he walked to the door leading to the lower level of the house. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now, back to the story. The wooden stairs creaked under his feet as he descended slowly. The basement had always been his private refuge, the place where he kept his tools and some personal items his children dismissed as worthless junk. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing dusty shelves and stacked boxes. Then his eyes locked onto the far wall. One of the wooden panels was slightly out of place, as if it had been moved. Strange. He was certain everything had been perfectly aligned the last time he was down here. He approached slowly, running his hand along the wood. The panel gave way, under pressure, revealing a dark space behind it. William's heart raced. In 50 years of living in this house, he had never noticed this hidden compartment. With trembling hands, he removed a few more panels, creating an opening large enough to step through. The flashlight revealed something that made him stagger back in shock. There, embedded in the concrete wall, was a dark steel safe that looked like it had been installed decades ago. William touched the cold metal surface, struggling to process what he was seeing. How could there be a safe in the wall of his own house without him knowing? Who had put it there? And most importantly, what was inside? The safe was old, probably from the 1970s, with a combination lock. There were no marks or scratches to indicate any attempts to break in. It seemed untouched, as if it had been waiting patiently to be discovered. His legs trembled and he had to lean against the wall for support. The discovery was so surreal that for a moment he thought he might be dreaming. But the cold metal under his hands and the musty smell of the basement were all too real. He went back upstairs in shock, trying to figure out what to do next. Should he tell the kids? Try to open the safe? Call someone who specialized in this? The questions multiplied in his confused mind. In the kitchen, he made another cup of coffee, needing something warm to calm his nerves. As he waited for the water to boil, he tried to remember any clues about the safe's origin. The house had been bought from an Italian family who had moved to the southern states. Could they have left something behind? The sound of the front door snapped him back to reality. It was Robert, his middle child, walking in with a toolbox. "Hey, Dad, I came to grab those wrenches I left here last week. Any idea where I put them? They're in the basement, son. But Robert, I need to tell you something. Later, Dad, I'm in a hurry. The client's waiting. Robert went downstairs before William could say another word. The sound of objects being moved echoed from below, followed by a few minutes of silence, then a muffled shout. Dad, get down here now! William rushed downstairs to find Robert standing in front of the opening in the wall, staring at the safe with complete disbelief. What the hell is this? Robert asked, pointing at the safe. I just found it this morning. No idea how it got here. Robert stepped closer, examining the safe from every angle. He was a practical man, used to solving problems with his hands, but this was beyond him. This thing is ancient, Dad. Look at the lock mechanism. It's got to be at least 40 years old. The house was built 42 years ago, William murmured, doing the math. You think the previous owners left it here? I don't know, son. I don't know anything. Robert ran his hands over the safe, testing for loose panels or visible mechanisms. Nothing. It was a solid vault, seemingly impenetrable without the right combination. We need to tell Jennifer and Christine, Robert finally said. You really think so? Of course, Dad. This could be important. It might have historical value, or, I don't know, there could be something inside that helps us figure out where it came from. William nodded, but part of him hesitated. In recent years, the only times his kids showed real interest in talking to him were when they needed money or a favor. Now suddenly there was something mysterious in his house, something that might be valuable. They went back upstairs together, and Robert immediately grabbed the phone to call his sisters. Within 20 minutes, both Jennifer and Christine were at the door, their faces filled with an eagerness William hadn't seen in years. Where's this safe? Christine asked before even greeting her father. In the basement, but slow down, sweetheart. Dad, do you have any idea what this could mean? Jennifer interrupted, already heading downstairs. The three siblings crowded around the safe as if it were a sacred relic. William watched from a distance, feeling a strange mix of joy and bitterness. Finally, all three were in his house at the same time, interested in something. Too bad it wasn't him. We need to figure out the combination, Christine said, running, her fingers over the lock's numbers. Could be the previous owner's birth dates, Robert suggested. Or the year the house was built, Jennifer added. They spent 2 hours trying different combinations without success. William suggested they might need to call an expert, but his children were determined to open the safe right then. Dad, are you absolutely sure you never saw anything about this in the house documents? Jennifer asked for the third time. I'm sure, sweetheart, all the papers are in the desk drawer. You can look. While the children rummaged through papers upstairs, William stayed alone with the safe. He approached it slowly and, on impulse, tried a combination he hadn't mentioned to anyone, his own birth date. The lock didn't budge. He tried his late wife Grace's birth date next. Nothing. Then, almost as a joke, he entered their wedding date. The mechanism gave a soft click, and the safe door creaked open with a metallic groan. William stepped back, his heart racing. Inside the safe, illuminated by the flashlight, were stacks of money neatly bundled, carefully piled gold bars, and what looked like antique jewelry. It was more wealth than he had ever seen in his life. Kids, he shouted, his voice hoarse. Get down here now! The sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the house. All three children came running down, finding their father standing frozen before the open safe, pale as a ghost. The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer was the first to move, stepping forward slowly as if afraid the sight might vanish. My God, she whispered. Is this real? Robert picked up one of the money stacks, flipping through the bills with trembling hands. They were old bills, some still in perfect condition. How much do you think is here? Christine asked, her voice barely above a whisper. A lot, Robert replied, still thumbing through the money. A whole lot. William watched the change. In his children's faces, the same eyes that had ignored him that morning now burned with an intensity he hadn't seen in years. But it wasn't the joy of a family reunion. It was something else, something that sent a chill down his spine. Dad, Jennifer said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. How did you open it? I used the date of my wedding to your mother. That's weird, Christine murmured. Why would your wedding date work? It was a good question, and William had no answer. In fact, the more he thought about it, the more unsettled he became. Why would someone install a safe in his house using an important date from his life as the combination? We need to figure out where this came from, Robert said, finally stepping away from the money. And how, Jennifer added, but her voice had a different tone, more interested, more calculating. William suggested they close the safe and seek professional help the next morning. Reluctantly, the children agreed, though he noticed how slowly they all stepped away from the uncovered treasure. That night, for the first time in months, all three children had dinner with him. The conversation revolved obsessively around the safe, the possibilities, the plans. William should have been happy for the renewed attention, but something troubled him deeply. "Dad, are you sure you never heard anything about the previous owners?" Christine asked between bites. "I'm sure they were Italian, moved to the southern states. It all happened very quickly back then." "Maybe we should try to track them down," Jennifer suggested. "Why?" William asked. "Well, to see if they have any claim to this. To do things properly, legally speaking," Robert scoffed. "Jennifer, if they left it here, they didn't need it anymore. It's been 40 years. Or they forgot," she countered. "Don't you think it's strange no one ever came looking?" "Maybe they didn't even know it existed," Christine pointed out. "Could have been hidden by the owner before the Italians." The speculations continued late into the night. William went to bed with his head spinning, trying to process not only the discovery of the safe, but also the drastic change in his children's behavior. The next morning he woke to the sound of voices downstairs. He went down and found Jennifer and Robert in the kitchen, drinking coffee and whispering, a conversation that stopped the moment they saw him. "Good morning, Dad," Jennifer said, forcing a casual tone. "We made coffee for you." "Where's Christine?" "She went to work, said she'd be back by lunchtime." William poured himself some coffee, noticing how his two children watched him with a level of attention he hadn't received in years. But there was something different in their gazes, something that made him uneasy. "Dad, we were thinking," Robert began, exchanging a glance with Jennifer, "about the safe. Maybe it's best not to mention it to anyone else for now." "Why?" "Well, you know how people are. If word gets out that there's money in the house, it could attract the wrong kind of attention." Jennifer nodded vigorously. "Robert's right. We should keep it a secret until we figure out exactly what to do." William agreed, but something about his children's urgency unsettled him. Deciding he needed fresh air, he announced he was going for a walk in the square. "Do you want company?" Jennifer offered, though without much enthusiasm. "No, thank you. I need to think." The walk to Liberty Square always calmed him. He sat on his usual bench, watching people pass by, trying to sort through his thoughts. The discovery of the safe should have been a reason for joy, but something troubled him deeply. He was so lost in thought that he barely noticed when someone sat beside him. It was Mrs. Margaret, his neighbor of over 30 years, a 75-year-old woman who always had a kind word. "You look like you've seen a ghost, William," she said with a gentle smile. "Oh, Mrs. Margaret, good morning. It's nothing serious, just family matters. Your children were quite worked up yesterday. I saw them all arriving at the same time. That's rare." William looked at her with interest. Mrs. Margaret was known in the neighborhood for her sharp observational skills. "Did you notice anything else?" "Well, I saw them leaving late last night to go to the all-night bank. And this morning Jennifer was on the phone on the porch, saying something about appraising. I'm not sure what." William's stomach tightened. Why would his children go to the bank in the middle of the night? And what was Jennifer talking about on the phone? "Mrs. Margaret, do you remember the old owners of my house? The Italians?" "Oh yes, the Gallaghers. A very private family, never spoke much to the neighbors." "Do you know why they left so suddenly?" Mrs. Margaret grew thoughtful for a moment. "You know, it always struck me as odd. They had just finished some renovations on the house, including the basement. They mentioned they were preparing the house to stay in the family for generations. Then all of a sudden they put everything up for sale and vanished." "Renovations in the basement?" "Yes. I remember they brought in a lot of construction materials. Cement, special tools. Mr. Gallagher said he was preparing a safe place to keep the family's important things. William's blood ran cold. A safe place, like a wall-mounted safe. Do you know where they went? Down to the southern states, from what I heard. But William, there was something strange about their hurry, almost like they were running from something. William returned home with his mind buzzing with new questions. If the Gallaghers had put the safe there as a safe place, why would they use his wedding date as the combination? And why would they leave in such a rush, abandoning something so obviously valuable? As he opened the front door, he heard lively voices coming from the living room. He found his 3 children gathered around the coffee table, papers scattered about and a calculator in hand. "Dad!" Christine stood up quickly, trying to hide what they were doing. "How was your walk?" "It was nice. What are you all up to?" "Oh, just organizing some documents," Robert said, hastily gathering the papers. But William saw enough. There were sheets with numbers, calculations, estimates. They were evaluating the contents of the safe. "Kids, did you go down to look at the safe again?" "Just a quick peek," Jennifer admitted, "to get a better idea of what we're dealing with." "And?" The 3 exchanged meaningful glances. "Dad," Robert said, choosing his words carefully, "we think there's a lot more money in there than we guessed yesterday." "How much more?" "Hard to say exactly without a professional appraisal, but maybe enough to change our lives forever." William felt a chill. There was something in the way Robert said "our lives" that didn't necessarily include his. "Kids, I spoke with Mrs. Margaret today. She told me some interesting things about the previous owners." "What kind of things?" Christine asked, sounding nervous. William recounted his conversation with the neighbor about the basement renovations and the Gallaghers' rush to move out. His children listened silently, but he could see the gears turning in their minds. "So you're saying they knew about the safe," Jennifer murmured. "And still left," Robert added. "Or were forced to leave," Christine said thoughtfully. "What do you mean by that?" William asked. "Well, Dad, think about it. If you had a fortune hidden in your house, would you just leave it behind, unless you had no choice?" The implication of Christine's words hung in the air like a dark cloud. William began to feel that the discovery of the safe wasn't a blessing, but perhaps a curse. That evening at dinner, he noticed his children were different. More attentive, more interested in his opinion, more affectionate. Robert offered to fix the kitchen faucet leak he'd ignored for months. Jennifer suggested he move in with her, saying the house was too big for one person. Christine promised to visit him every day. It was everything William had wished for over the years, but now with the safe's discovery, it all seemed tainted by hidden motives. "Dad," Jennifer said, serving him another slice of cake she'd brought from an expensive bakery, "we were thinking maybe it's best not to touch the safe for a few days. Leave everything as is until we decide what to do." "I agree," Robert chimed in quickly. "Haste makes waste." "And of course," Christine added, "any decision has to be yours. It's your house, your rules." William nodded, but noticed how all 3 avoided looking him in the eye when they spoke of your rules and your decisions. After they left, he went back down to the basement. The safe was closed, but he could feel its presence like a magnetic force. He hesitated, then entered the combination again. The safe opened, its contents untouched. This time, William examined it more carefully. Beneath the money and gold were some yellow documents at the bottom. He took them upstairs to the living room where the light was better. The documents were in Italian, but some words were understandable. There were dates, numbers, and what looked like some kind of contract or agreement. One name appeared repeatedly: Anthony Gallagher. William tucked the documents into his desk and spent the night trying to make sense of it all. The next day, he decided to find someone who could help him with the translation. He knew Father Michael from the local church, who spoke Italian fluently due to his many years working with immigrants. He placed the documents in a folder and walked to the church. "William!" Father Michael greeted him with a warm smile. "It's been so long since I've seen you here. Good morning, Father. I need a favor. Could you help me translate some documents in Italian?" "Of course, my son. What is this about?" William hesitated. He had promised his children he would keep the safe a secret, but he needed to understand what those papers said. They're old. Documents I found at home. They seem important, but I can't make sense of them. Father Michael examined the papers with growing attention. His expression gradually shifted from curiosity to concern. William, where did you find these? Why do you ask? These documents, they talk about hidden money. A lot of money. And there's something about protection and debts of honor. William's stomach twisted. What exactly do they say? Well, it's a bit confusing, but from what I understand, Anthony Gallagher was hiding money that wasn't entirely his. There was some kind of partnership, other names involved, and he mentions that if anything happened to him, the money should stay hidden until it was safe to retrieve it. And when would it be safe? That's not clear. But there's a date, mentioned several times, a date he considered significant for determining when it would be appropriate to recover the money. What date? Father Michael looked more carefully. March 15th, 1955. William felt the world spin around him. March 15th, 1955. The date of his wedding to Grace. Father, this doesn't make sense. How could this man have known my wedding date? Are you sure it's the same date? Absolutely. I married my wife on March 15th, 1955. Father Michael fell silent for a long moment, studying the documents with an increasingly troubled expression. William, there's something very strange here. These papers are from 1972, 17 years after the date mentioned. It's as if Anthony was waiting for something related to that specific date. Father, do you think he knew me? It's possible. Or he knew your wife. William, do you remember Grace ever mentioning any connection to Italian immigrants? William searched his memory. Grace had passed away 15 years ago, and in her final years, she had been very frail, speaking little. But there was something, a vague recollection of conversations about her family, about secrets from the past. My wife was very private about her family, William admitted. She always said she'd lost touch with everyone after her parents died. Perhaps you should look further into her family's history. William thanked the priest and returned home with his mind racing. He needed to uncover the connection between Grace and the Gallaghers, but he didn't know where to start. When he arrived home, he found Robert waiting at the door. Dad, I was looking for you. I need to talk about something important. What is it? It's about the safe. I spoke to a friend who works at a bank and he said we might be dealing with a very significant amount. Maybe we should move it somewhere safer. What do you mean? Well, keeping so much money at home isn't safe. It could be stolen or other complications could arise. There was something in the way Robert said other complications that put William on edge. What kind of complications? Oh, you know how it is. Legal issues, taxes, that sort of thing. It would be better if we could arrange everything properly. Robert, did you tell anyone about the safe? Just my friend at the bank. He's trustworthy, don't worry. But William was worried, very worried. The promise of secrecy had lasted less than 48 hours. Son, I think it's best we don't tell anyone else until we understand the situation. Better. Dad, I know you're cautious, but sometimes you have to trust the right people. My friend can help us handle everything legally and safely. That night, William barely slept. Pieces of a complex puzzle were starting to form in his mind, but the resulting image terrified him. The next day, he decided to take action. He went to the county clerk's office where he had registered the purchase of the house 40 years earlier, hoping to find more information about the previous owners. The clerk, a young man who clearly hadn't been there at the time of the original transaction, had to dig through old files for over an hour. Here it is, he finally said, pulling out a dusty folder. Sale from 1983, William Parker purchasing from Anthony Gallagher and Mary Gallagher. Is there any information about where they moved? Let me see. Oh yes, they provided an address in Portland as a reference. William wrote down the address, even though he knew after 40 years it probably wouldn't lead anywhere. But as he examined the documents, something caught his attention. Young man, this signature here from the wife, Mary Gallagher. Can I take a closer look? The clerk brought the document closer. William felt his blood run cold. The signature was nearly identical to that of his late wife, Grace. Not just similar. It was the same handwriting, the same way of looping the letters. Is something wrong? the clerk asked, noticing William's paleness. No, it just reminded me of someone. William left the office in shock. The implications were terrifying. Could his wife, Grace, have been Mary Gallagher? Had she lied about her identity all those years of marriage? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, he returned home trying to process this devastating revelation. If Grace was really Mary Gallagher, it would explain why their wedding date was in the documents, why it worked as the safe combination. But it also raised frightening questions about who she really was and where that money had come from. When he got home, he found his 3 children gathered in the living room, whispering in hushed tones that stopped abruptly when they saw him. Dad, Jennifer stood up quickly. Where were you? Just went for a walk. Why? No reason. It's just, well, someone came by looking for you. William's heart raced. Who? An older man. He said he was... What was it again, Robert? A family history researcher. He was interested in information about the previous owners of the house. And what did you tell him? That you'd stepped out but would be back soon. He said he'd return later. A chill ran down William's spine. After 40 years, someone shows up asking about the former residents exactly when they discovered the safe. It couldn't be a coincidence. Did this man leave a name? Gallagher, Christine said. Vincent Gallagher. William's world crumbled. A Gallagher had returned, and it probably wasn't by chance. Kids, did you tell him about the safe? Of course not, Robert said, but there was something in his voice that didn't sound convincing. Good, because it's very important no one knows about this. Dad, are you okay? You look pale, Jennifer observed. I'm fine, I'm going upstairs to rest for a bit. In his room, William locked the door and tried to gather his thoughts. Grace could have been Mary Gallagher. Vincent Gallagher had shown up looking for information. The safe contained a fortune that apparently didn't entirely belong to the Gallaghers, and their children had been acting strangely since the discovery. He decided he needed to act fast. He went down to the basement, opened the safe again, and took all the documents inside. He also grabbed some of the smaller gold bars and an amount of cash he could easily carry. He hid everything in an old suitcase at the back of his bedroom closet. If something were to happen, at least he'd have some evidence and resources at hand. 2 hours later, the doorbell rang. William went downstairs and found a man in his 70s at the door, with striking features that vaguely reminded him of someone he'd known in the past. Mr. Parker, I'm Vincent Gallagher. I believe my nephews mentioned my visit. Nephews? Sorry, your sons, I spoke with them earlier. William noticed the correction, but something about the way Vincent had first said nephews unsettled him. Please, come in. How can I help you? Vincent stepped inside and looked around the house with a familiarity he shouldn't have had. This house belonged to my family for many years. My brother Anthony and his wife Mary lived here until 1983. Yes, they were the ones who sold it to me. Did you get to know them well? Not really. The transaction was quick. Vincent nodded, but his eyes kept scanning every detail of the house. Mr. Parker, may I ask you a personal question? Are you married? I was. My wife passed away 15 years ago. I'm sorry, what was her name? William hesitated. There was something about the question that felt like a test. Grace. Vincent went still for a moment, then nodded slowly. Grace Mary, by any chance? William's blood ran cold. How do you know that? Because Mary was my sister-in-law's real name. Grace was just a family nickname. William's legs felt weak. What are you saying? I'm saying, Mr. Parker, that your wife was my sister-in-law. Grace was Mary Gallagher, the wife of my brother Anthony. The world stopped. William stared at Vincent, trying to process what he'd just heard. That's impossible. Grace was single when we got married. She told you that? Yes, of course. But the words died in his throat. The truth was, Grace had never spoken much about her past. She always changed the subject when he asked about her family. Mr. Parker, I know this is a shock, but you need to understand Mary, Grace, was in a very complicated situation when she left my brother. What kind of situation? Vincent looked around again, as if checking they were truly alone. My brother Anthony was involved in some questionable business. Nothing violent, mind you, but not entirely legal. When things started getting tight, he decided to hide a significant portion of the profits until it was safe to retrieve them. And where did he hide it? At first, we thought he'd taken everything when they moved, but recently we found some documents suggesting he may have left something here in the house. William tried to keep his expression neutral, but his heart was racing. What kind of thing? Money? Jewelry? Maybe gold? Anthony was always very paranoid about keeping resources hidden for emergencies. And you think it could still be here? After 40 years? It's possible. My brother was very creative with his hiding spots. Vincent stood and walked to the window, looking out at the backyard. Mr. Parker, may I be direct with you? Please. If anything is found in this house that originally belonged to my family, I'd like the chance to discuss it civilly. I'm not here to cause trouble, but there are legal and family matters involved. William felt a wave of panic. Vincent clearly suspected that something had been found. Mr. Gallagher, may I ask how you knew I lived here? Oh, it was easy. We keep family records, and recently someone started asking questions about converting old currency and appraising gold on the local market. William's stomach sank. The kids. They had begun investigating the value of the safe's contents, and it had reached Vincent's ears. I see. Mr. Parker, your children are very interesting people. We spoke briefly today, and they seemed eager to resolve certain family matters. There was a subtle threat in those words. Vincent was making it clear he knew about the safe and had already planted seeds in William's children's minds. What exactly do you want? Justice, and a fair division of whatever is found. Half rightfully belongs to the Gallagher family. And if nothing is found? Vincent smiled, but it was a cold smile. Then we'll have nothing to worry about, will we? After Vincent left, William sat in the living room, trying to process everything he had just learned. His wife had been married before. She had lied about her identity. And now her real family was back, claiming part of a fortune he hadn't even known existed. The phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. Dad? It was Robert's voice. How did the talk with Mr. Gallagher go? How did you know he was here? Oh, he called us, said he'd spoken with you. Robert, what's this about you talking to him about converting old currency? Silence on the other end. Dad, can we talk in person? It's better. Come here now. Within 20 minutes, all three children were in the living room, their expressions a mix of guilt and defiance. Dad, we can explain, Jennifer began. I hope so. Vincent approached us last night, Robert admitted. He said he knew about what we found. And you confirmed it? Not exactly, Christine said, but he already knew. He said he had documents, proving some of it belonged to his family. And you believed him. Dad, he showed us papers, old photos, even a picture of Mom we'd never seen before. William felt the world spin. What photo? Jennifer pulled a photograph from her pocket. It was Grace, but younger, standing beside a man William didn't recognize. On the back, someone had written, Mary and Anthony, 1954. Where did you get this? Vincent brought it. Dad, Mom's name really was Mary Gallagher before she married you, and you decided to investigate the gold's value without telling me. Dad, we just wanted to know what we were dealing with, Robert defended, to protect the family. Protect us from what? Legal trouble, Christine said. Vincent made it clear that if the Gallaghers have a claim to part of it, we'd better settle things amicably. Or what? Or he'll pursue other means, Jennifer murmured. William realized his children had been manipulated. Vincent had used Grace's photo and some veiled threats to convince them they had to cooperate. Kids, you don't understand what's happening. This man is using you. Dad, we get that it's hard, Robert said. Finding out Mom had secrets, that there's all this history. But the reality is we have to deal with it now. And what's his proposal? A 50-50 split, Christine answered. He takes half, we take half, everyone wins. And if I disagree, the three children exchanged uneasy glances. Dad, he said he has lawyers, Jennifer admitted. that he can prove the money was hidden illegally in his house and that part of the profits were rightfully his by partnership. He could make our lives very complicated, Robert added. William began to understand the extent of the manipulation. Vincent had scared his children with legal threats and then offered a friendly solution that would benefit them financially. They had fallen right into the trap. And when is this division supposed to happen? Tomorrow, Christine said. He wants to settle everything quickly. Why the rush? He said there are other heirs from the Gallagher family who could complicate things if they find out what was discovered. William realized he was being forced into an impossible decision. If he refused, Vincent could cause legal trouble. He didn't have the resources to fight. If he agreed, he'd be handing over half of something that might rightfully belong to him, since it had been on his property for 40 years. Kids, I need to think about this. Dad, there's not much to think about, Robert said, impatience creeping into his voice. It's the best solution for everyone. The best solution for who? For the family, Jennifer answered, but she couldn't look him in the eye. That night, after the children left, William went up to his room and opened the suitcase, where he'd hidden part of the safe's contents. He examined the Italian documents again, trying to better understand what Father Michael had translated. There was something bothering him about the whole story. If Anthony and Mary Grace had fled in a hurry, leaving behind a fortune, why had she never tried to recover it? Why had she never mentioned anything about it during their 28 years of marriage? And more importantly, why had Vincent appeared just now after 40 years of silence? He decided he needed answers before making any decision. The next morning, he went back to the church to find Father Michael. Father, I need one more favor. Could you examine these documents more carefully? I think there might be important details we're missing. Father Michael spent over an hour going through the papers, taking notes and consulting an Italian-English dictionary. William, there's something very interesting here that I didn't notice before. What? Anthony wasn't just hiding. Money. He was protecting Mary from something or someone. How so? There are several references to threats and necessary protection, and one name that keeps appearing as a source of danger, Vincent Gallagher. William's blood ran cold. Vincent? Yes. From what I understand, Vincent was pressuring Anthony to reveal where the money was hidden. Anthony apparently feared his brother might hurt them if he found out the location, so Vincent isn't here to claim legitimate rights. Quite the opposite. These documents suggest Anthony was trying to protect the money specifically from Vincent. William left the church with a new understanding of the situation. Vincent wasn't a rightful heir seeking justice. He was the dangerous brother Anthony had tried to protect Mary and the money from. That explained why Grace Mary had never mentioned the safe. She knew Vincent could still be a threat. When he got home, he found his children waiting, along with Vincent. They were all gathered in the living room, papers spread across the table. Dad, Robert stood up. We've reached an agreement. What kind of agreement? Vincent will take 40% and we'll keep 60%, Jennifer announced, as if it was some great victory. And why do you think you have the authority to make deals on my behalf? Dad, be reasonable, Christine said. It's better than risking losing everything in a legal battle. Vincent watched the conversation with a satisfied smile. Mr. Parker, your children are very sensible. They recognize a good offer when they see one. And what if I don't agree with this good offer? Then we'll have to resolve this. In other ways, Vincent replied, his smile fading. What other ways? Legal ones, of course. I have documents proving my rights, and I also have other evidence about how the money got here. There was a clear threat in Vincent's words. William realized he was being blackmailed. What evidence? Oh, information about my brother's activities, things that might interest the tax authorities, for example. William's children seemed uncomfortable but said nothing. They had been convinced Vincent had the power to cause serious trouble for the family. I need time to think. Of course, Vincent said magnanimously, but not too much time. Let's say by tomorrow at noon. After everyone left, William stayed alone, trying to find a way out. Vincent clearly knew about the safe and was using threats to force a split in his favor. His children had been manipulated and were now pressuring him to accept the deal. But William now knew the truth. Vincent was exactly the person Anthony had tried to protect the money from. He decided he had to act. That night, he transferred the remaining contents of the safe into several suitcases and bags, hiding everything in different places around the house. If Vincent tried anything, he wouldn't find anything in the safe. The next morning, Vincent arrived promptly at noon, accompanied by William's 3 children. "Mr. Parker, I hope you've made the right decision." "I have. But first I want to know one thing." "What? How did you track the money here?" Vincent hesitated for a moment. "As I said, we have family records. Records that include the information that your sister-in-law changed her name to Grace and married me. Information comes to us in many ways. Or perhaps you hired someone to watch me when I started investigating antique coins and gold." Vincent's face hardened. "Mr. Parker, I don't understand what you're getting at. I want the truth. I read the documents your brother left. I know he was trying to protect the money specifically from you." "That's a lie." "Is it? Then why did you wait 40 years to come looking? Why only show up after we found the safe?" Vincent glanced at William's children, who looked confused. "What are you talking about?" Robert asked. "Your father is making excuses not to honor a fair deal," Vincent replied quickly. "No," William said firmly. "I'm trying to protect my family from a blackmailer." "Dad!" Jennifer exclaimed. "You can't talk like that." "I can, and I will. Vincent, if you have legitimate rights to anything, take it to court. But you won't blackmail me or manipulate my children." Vincent fell silent for a moment, clearly reassessing his strategy. "Mr. Parker, I don't think you fully understand the situation. I have the resources to make your life very complicated. Maybe, but I have resources of my own now." "Dad, what resources are you talking about?" Christine asked. "The money from the safe, of course." Vincent smiled confidently. "Ah, yes. The money from the safe. Why don't we take a look at it now?" They all went down to the basement. Vincent walked straight to the wall where the safe was embedded, as if he knew its exact location. "Would you open it, please?" he asked. William entered the combination, and the safe opened, revealing nothing. It was completely empty. "Interesting," Vincent murmured. "Where is everything?" "What everything?" "Don't be ridiculous, Mr. Parker. Your children described exactly what was in here. Where did you hide it?" "Dad," Robert said, peering into the empty safe, "where's the money?" "What money?" "Dad, stop this." Jennifer was getting upset. "We saw it. It was all here." Vincent watched the family with growing irritation. "Mr. Parker, I'll give you one last chance. Return what you took from the safe, and we'll split. That is agreed, otherwise..." "Otherwise what?" "Otherwise I'll report undeclared money hidden in your house to the authorities." That's when William realized he had underestimated Vincent. He wasn't just trying to recover money he believed was his. He was prepared to ruin William's life if he didn't get what he wanted. "Dad, for heaven's sake," Christine pleaded, "where did you put the things?" William looked at his 3 children, seeing only greed and desperation in their eyes. There was no trace left of the love or respect he had hoped for from them. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said calmly. Vincent turned red, with anger. "Your children told me exactly what was here, stacks of cash, gold bars, jewelry. There's no use denying it. If my children told you that, then my children are lying." "Dad!" Robert exploded. "Stop lying. We all saw it." "Robert," William said sadly, "you're yelling at your father over money that doesn't even exist." "Of course it exists. It was here just yesterday." "If it was, then someone took it, because I didn't touch a thing." Vincent was growing increasingly nervous. His strategy depended on the money being physically there, and now he had no way to prove anything. "Mr. Parker, your children will testify that you took the money." "Will they?" William looked at the 3 of them. "You'd testify against your own father to help a stranger blackmail me?" Jennifer, Robert, and Christine exchanged uncomfortable glances. The reality of what Vincent was asking was starting to sink in. "Dad, we just want things to be fair," Jennifer murmured. "Fair for who? For him?" William pointed at Vincent. Do you know how long it had been since you visited before we found this safe? Do you know the last time you showed any real interest in my life? Dad, that's not the point, Robert argued. It's exactly the point. You ignored me for years. Now that you think there's money involved, suddenly I matter again. That's not true, Christine protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Vincent realized he was losing control of the situation. Fine, he said, pulling out a phone. I'll call the authorities. We'll settle this officially. Go ahead, William replied calmly. Tell them about an empty safe in a house I've owned for 40 years. I'd love to hear that conversation. Vincent hesitated. Without the physical money, he had no proof of his claims, and making false accusations to the authorities could backfire. This isn't over, he said, putting the phone away. For me, it is. I want you out of my house and never to come back. And your children? Do they agree with that? William looked at the three of them, torn between loyalty to their father and the disappointment of losing their chance at quick riches. My children are free to make their own choices, but if they side with a blackmailer, they'll have to live with the consequences. Vincent left in a rage, but not before exchanging meaningful looks with William's children. It was clear their conversation would continue outside the house. After everyone was gone, William was alone once more. But this time, the loneliness was different. It wasn't the sadness of being ignored. It was the melancholy of discovering who his children truly were when money entered the equation. In the days that followed, the children tried different approaches. Jennifer came with tears in her eyes, begging him to be reasonable. Robert arrived with veiled threats about legal consequences. Christine tried guilt, reminding him of everything the family had been through together. But William stood his ground. The safe was empty. He knew nothing about any money, and Vincent was a blackmailer who should be ignored. 2 weeks later, Vincent made one last attempt. He arrived with 2 men in suits who introduced themselves as private investigators. Mr. Parker, Vincent said, I've brought some specialists to examine your house. We have reason to believe there may be other hiding spots. Do you have a search warrant? We don't need one. Your children gave us permission to enter. My children don't own this house. I do, and you're not coming in. Dad. Jennifer appeared behind Vincent. We just want to settle this once and for all. There's nothing to settle, Jennifer, and you're not entering my home. Vincent stood at the door for several minutes, clearly weighing whether to force his way in. But without physical evidence or legal authorization, he had no grounds to act. Mr. Parker, you're making a very big mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. After that incident, his children stopped visiting him altogether. Occasionally, William would see them on the street, but they'd give him a quick greeting and move on as if he were a stranger. A month after the discovery of the safe, William received an unexpected visit. It was Margaret, his neighbor, who seemed worried. William, there are some strange people lurking around your house when you're away. What kind of people? Men in dark cars. They watch, take notes. Just today I saw one of them trying to peer through your basement. Windows. William realized Vincent hadn't given up. He was sending people to watch the house, likely waiting for a chance to break in and search for what he believed was hidden. Margaret, could you do me a favor? Of course. If you see those men again, could you call the police? Tell them there are suspicious people trying to break into homes in the neighborhood. I'll call them, yes, but William, don't you want to tell me what's going on? William hesitated. Margaret had been his friend for decades, one of the few people who still genuinely cared about him. Margaret, can I trust you? Of course you can. William told her the whole story. The discovery of the safe, the revelation about Grace, Mary, Vincent's appearance, his children's betrayal. Margaret listened in silence, her expression growing more concerned. My God, William, and where is the money now? Hidden in several places around the house. I won't let that man blackmail me. But don't you think it's dangerous to keep it all here? If he's really sending people to watch, it was a good question. William had thought about it, but didn't know where else he could safely hide such a large sum. Margaret, do you know any banks that offer safe deposit boxes? I do. My late husband rented one at First National Bank. But William, you'll have to declare all this on your taxes. I know, I'm already arranging that with an accountant. In truth, William had consulted an accountant the week before, a professional recommended by Father Michael. The man had been stunned by the amount and the situation, but assured him everything could be legalized through a treasure trove declaration. The problem, the accountant had explained, is that you'll have to pay a significant amount in taxes, maybe 40% of the total value. It was a steep price, but William preferred paying taxes to the government over being blackmailed. By Vincent. 2 days later, with Margaret's help, William transferred the entire treasure to a safe deposit box at the bank. The process was discreet, done over several trips throughout the day to avoid drawing attention. That night, he slept peacefully, for the first time in weeks. The money was safe out of Vincent's reach and beyond any attempt at theft. The next morning, he received a call from Jennifer. "Dad, Vincent said he's coming to your house today. He wants to make one last offer." "I'm not interested in offers. Dad, please, just hear him out. It could be good for everyone." "Jennifer, tell Vincent that if he comes to my house, I'll call the police." "Dad, and Jennifer, you should be ashamed of siding with a blackmailer against your own father." William hung up the phone. An hour later, Vincent showed up at the door alone this time. "Mr. Parker, I've come to make a final offer." "I'm not interested. You don't even know what the offer is." "It doesn't matter what it is. The answer is no." Vincent stood in the doorway studying William's face. "You really transferred everything to a safe place, didn't you?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you do. My men saw you and the neighbor making several trips to the bank with heavy bags." William felt a chill. Vincent had sent people to watch him, even during the transfer. "So what?" "So now I know where to look." "Vincent, let me give you some advice. Drop this. Move on with your life. Stop chasing money that isn't yours." "Oh, but it is mine, and I'll prove it." "How?" Vincent smiled darkly. "Your children gave me power of attorney to act on their behalf regarding their mother's inheritance." William's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "It means I can legally challenge any transaction you make with assets that should belong to Mary Gallagher's heirs." "Mary Gallagher doesn't exist. My wife's name was Grace Parker." "Ah, but I have documents proving Mary Gallagher and Grace Parker were the same person, and that she was married to my brother when she married you." William felt the world collapse around him. If Vincent could prove Grace was legally married to Anthony when she married him, it could invalidate their marriage and drastically complicate the inheritance issue. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Your children don't think I'm lying. They signed documents acknowledging their mother may have had prior legal rights and obligations affecting the current inheritance." Vincent was playing a much more sophisticated game than William had realized. He wasn't just trying to steal the money. He was building a complex legal case that could give him control over the entire situation. "Vincent, what do you really want?" "I want what's rightfully mine, 50% of everything that was found. And if I agree, then everyone's happy. Your children get their mother's inheritance, I recover what my brother owed me, and you keep your share for taking care of everything all these years. And if I don't agree, then we go to court, and rest assured I'll make your life very complicated during the process." William realized he was cornered. Vincent had spent weeks building a legal case that could actually work, especially with the cooperation of William's own children. "I need to think." "Of course, but don't take too long. My lawyers are eager to get started." After Vincent left, William sat in the living room, trying to understand how he'd gotten to this point. In just a few weeks, he'd lost his children, discovered his wife had lied about her identity, and was now being blackmailed by a man who might have legal grounds for his claims. He decided he needed professional help. He looked for a lawyer specializing in family and inheritance law, recommended by the accountant handling his taxes. Dr. Thomas Wilson listened to the whole story with growing concern. "Mr. Parker, this is a very complex situation. If Vincent can indeed prove your wife was legally married to his brother, it creates multiple complications." "Tell you what kind of complications?" "Well, technically your marriage could be considered invalid. This wouldn't just affect inheritance matters, but could also complicate the legitimacy of your children." William felt his blood run cold. My children could be considered illegitimate. It's possible, and that would affect their rights to any property or inheritance. But they signed documents with Vincent. Yes, and that's very problematic. They may have unintentionally complicated their own legal standing. Dr. Wilson examined the documents William had brought, including the translations from Father Michael. Mr. Parker, there's something interesting here. These documents suggest Anthony was involved in questionable activities, but they also indicate he was trying to protect his wife from something. Yes, Father Michael mentioned that. If we can prove Grace Mary was forced to assume a new identity to protect herself from Vincent or other threats, it could significantly strengthen our case. How could we prove that? We need to dig deeper into the Gallagher family history, and perhaps find people who knew your wife back then. William authorized Dr. Wilson to begin the investigation. Meanwhile, his children kept pressuring him to accept Vincent's offer. "Dad, you're being stubborn," Robert said during a tense visit. "Vincent is offering a fair solution." Fair for whom? For everyone. You keep 50% of something you didn't even know existed, and you get the other 50%? No, Dad. Vincent keeps his share, and we get our portion of Mom's inheritance. What inheritance? Your mother left nothing but this house. Dad, please, Jennifer intervened. Vincent explained everything. Mom had rights to Gallagher family assets that were never claimed. Now that we know, we can finally access what's rightfully ours. William realized Vincent had convinced his children they were rightful heirs to a family fortune, when in truth they were just being used to pressure him into handing over the money. Kids, you're being deceived. Dad, you're the one being stubborn, Christine replied. Vincent showed us documents, family trees, proof that our mother was part of the Gallagher family. And you believed a stranger over your own father. Dad, it's not about belief. These are documented facts. A week later, Dr. Wilson returned with information that completely changed William's perspective on the situation. Mr. Parker, I've uncovered some very interesting things about the Gallagher family. What kind of things? Vincent Gallagher has an extensive criminal record in Italy. He's been involved in fraud and extortion schemes for decades. And Anthony. Anthony appears to have been a completely different person. No criminal record, but there's evidence he was trying to distance himself from the family business. What evidence? I found records of correspondence between Anthony and Italian lawyers. He was attempting to dissolve partnerships with Vincent and other family members, claiming he had lost trust in their methods. Dr. Wilson showed copies of documents he had obtained through contacts in Italy. Even more interesting, there are records showing Mary Gallagher sought help from Italian police in 1982, claiming she was being threatened by Vincent. Threatened how? Vincent apparently discovered Anthony had hidden money and was forcing the couple to reveal where. When they refused, Vincent began making violent threats. And what happened? Police recommended they leave the country. Temporarily. Records show the couple bought tickets to the United States in March 1983. William fell silent, processing the information. His wife had indeed been Mary Gallagher, and she had truly fled Italy to escape Vincent. Doctor, does this change anything legally? It changes everything. If we can prove that Vincent is a criminal who was pursuing your wife, and that she assumed a new identity to protect herself, then any claim he has to assets she owned becomes completely invalid. What about my children? They are legally your children, regardless of the circumstances of her previous marriage. And as heirs to Grace Mary, they have rights to any property she may have had, including the money in the safe. That's more complicated. Technically, if the money belonged to Anthony and Mary, and they fled leaving it behind, it became abandoned property. After 40 years in your possession, you have a strong legal claim to it. Dr. Wilson also discovered that Vincent wasn't acting alone. Mr. Parker, Vincent has connections with other Italian criminals who are currently living in the United States. It's possible they're using your situation as a test for similar schemes. What kind of schemes? Looking for families who emigrated with undeclared assets, then blackmailing the descendants to gain access to the money. The revelation that Vincent was part of a larger criminal organization made William even more determined not to give in to the pressure. "Doctor, what should we do?" "First, we'll present all this evidence to the authorities. Vincent is running a blackmail scheme, and that's a crime. What about my children? They may be unknowingly involved in criminal activities. I suggest we try talking to them before taking more drastic legal measures." William decided to make one last attempt to speak with his children. He arranged a meeting at his house and asked them to come alone without Vincent. When they arrived, it was clear they were nervous and defensive. "Dad, if you called us here to try and convince us to back out of the deal with Vincent, you're wasting your time," Robert said immediately. "I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm here to show you some things I've learned about Vincent." William presented the documents Dr. Wilson had obtained, explaining Vincent's criminal past and how their mother had fled Italy to escape him. "Dad, this doesn't prove anything," Jennifer said, though she seemed less confident. "Vincent told us there were family conflicts in the past, but that everything was resolved." "Resolved how? Do you really think a man with a criminal record in Italy came to the United States 40 years later by coincidence?" "Dad, Vincent explained that he spent decades looking for Anthony and Mary," Christine defended. "He just wanted to reconcile the family and settle unresolved financial matters." "And you believe that?" "Why wouldn't we?" Robert shot back. "Do you have any proof he's lying?" William realized his children were so invested in the possibility of getting rich that they refused to accept any evidence contradicting Vincent's story. "Kids, Vincent is a criminal. He's using you to blackmail me." "Dad, these are serious accusations," Jennifer said. "Where's the proof?" William showed them copies of the criminal records and Italian police reports. "Is this proof enough?" The three of them examined the documents with growing concern. "Dad," Christine finally said, "even if Vincent had problems in the past, that doesn't change the fact that our mother was part of the Gallagher family and may have left unclaimed assets." "Christine, you're not listening. Vincent is a criminal trying to steal the money we found. There's no legitimate inheritance, just a very well-planned scam." "Dad, you're being paranoid," Robert said. "Vincent showed us documents, family trees, which could be forged. And the documents you're showing us could also be forged," Jennifer countered. William realized he had completely lost his children. They were so blinded by the prospect of easy money that they refused to see the truth. "Very well," he said calmly. "You've made your choice. Now you'll have to live with the consequences." "What consequences?" Robert asked. "When Vincent is arrested for blackmail and fraud, you could be considered accomplices." "Dad, you're exaggerating," Christine said, but her voice no longer sounded so confident. "Am I? You signed documents, giving power of attorney to a known criminal. You helped him pressure me into handing over money through threats. Do you think that has no legal consequences?" The three siblings exchanged worried glances. For the first time, they seemed to consider the possibility that they had made a grave mistake. "Dad," Jennifer said hesitantly, "if you really think Vincent is dangerous, maybe we should..." "Should what?" "Give up now that you realize you could be harmed too." "That's not it, Dad," Robert tried to argue. "It's just maybe we need to reevaluate the situation." "The situation is simple," William said. "You chose to trust a stranger over your own father. You chose the possibility of easy money over family. Now you'll have to find out if you made the right decision." "Dad, what do you want us to do?" Christine asked, tears in her eyes. "I want you to be honest with me. For the first time in weeks, I want you to tell me the truth." "What truth?" "If there were no money involved, would you have spent the last few weeks at my house, interested in my life, worried about me?" The silence that followed was more telling than any answer. "Dad," Jennifer murmured finally, "it's not like that. It's exactly like that. You ignored me for years. The only reason you're here now is the money." "Dad, we love you," Robert said, but the words rang hollow. "You love the idea of the money you think I have. You don't love me." William stood up, signaling the conversation was over. "Kids, you have a choice to make. You can stay on Vincent's side and face the legal consequences when he's investigated. Or you can be my children again and try to rebuild our family without money as the motivation." "And if we choose to stay on your side," Christine asked, What happens to the money? William smiled sadly. You still don't get it, do you? The question shouldn't be about the money, it should be about family. Dad, be practical, Robert insisted. The money is there. It won't just disappear because we pretend it doesn't exist. Robert, the money is already being legalized through the proper taxes. It will be used responsibly and legally. Used how? That's no longer your concern. You chose Vincent. Now live with that choice. After the children left, William felt strangely at peace for the first time in weeks. He had finally made it clear where he stood and what the consequences of their choices were. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 days later, Dr. Wilson called with important news. Mr. Parker, we've presented all the evidence to the federal authorities. Vincent is being investigated for fraud and blackmail. And my children? For now, they're considered victims of manipulation. But if they continue cooperating with Vincent after being informed of the investigation, the situation could change. Is someone going to inform them about the investigation? The police will want to talk to them as witnesses. It'll be an opportunity for them to understand the seriousness of the situation. The next morning, William was woken up by knocking at the door. 2 Federal Bureau of Investigation agents were there to update him on the case. Mr. Parker, we need your cooperation to better understand the scheme Vincent Gallagher is running. Of course. How can I help? First, we need to know exactly how he made contact with your family and what kind of pressure he applied. William recounted the whole story again, this time for the official record. The agents were particularly interested in the manipulation tactics Vincent had used. Mr. Parker, the pattern you're describing matches other fraud cases we're investigating. Vincent and his associates seem to have a well-developed method for identifying and exploiting situations like yours. What other situations? Immigrant families who might have undeclared assets or complicated inheritance issues. They take advantage of legal confusion and greed to extort money. The agents also wanted to speak with William's children. Mr. Parker, your children might have important information about how Vincent operates. They were in direct contact with him for weeks. Do you think they'll cooperate? It depends how committed they are to his narrative. Sometimes victims of sophisticated scams refuse to admit they've been deceived. That afternoon, William got an angry call from Robert. Dad, what's this about the FBI? 2 agents came to my house asking all kinds of questions about Vincent. Robert, Vincent is being investigated for fraud. That's ridiculous. Did you report him? I did, and I was right to. Dad, you have no idea what you've done. Vincent said if the police got involved, the whole deal was off. What deal? The agreement. Now he won't share anything. He said he felt betrayed by the family and would find other ways to get what's his. Robert, Vincent is a criminal. Any threats he makes only prove that. Dad, you ruined everything. We could have been rich by now. You could have been in jail by now, or worse. Robert hung up furious. An hour later, Christine called just as upset. Dad, the agents wanted to know about all the documents Vincent showed us. We had to hand everything over. Good, now they can check if the documents are forged or not. Dad, what if they're not forged? What if Vincent really has legal rights? Christine, even if Vincent had legal rights, which he doesn't, he went about this criminally. That invalidates any claim he might have had. Dad, you destroyed our chance at a better life. Christine, you already have a good life. You're healthy. You have jobs, your own families. Why did you need stolen money? It wasn't stolen, it was our mother's inheritance. It was money Vincent was trying to steal using you as tools, and you let him. Christine hung up angry too. William realized his children blamed him for ruining their chance to get rich quick. That evening he got a call from Jennifer. Her voice sounded different, calmer, more thoughtful. Dad, I spoke to the agents today, and they showed me Vincent's criminal record. It's extensive. Do you believe me now? Dad, I feel like such a fool. How could we be so naive? Jennifer, Vincent is a professional. This is what he does. You're not the first people he's fooled. Dad, can I come over? We need to talk. An hour later, Jennifer was sitting in the living room where it all began, tears in her eyes. "Dad, I feel so ashamed. How could we choose a stranger over you?" "Jennifer, greed makes people make bad decisions. What matters is recognizing the mistake and trying to fix it." "How can we fix it? Robert and Christine still think you ruined everything. They're furious." "They'll have to come to their own conclusions. I can't force them to understand." "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What's going to happen to the money now?" William studied his daughter's face, looking for signs of greed or hidden motives. But this time, the question seemed to come from genuine curiosity, not financial interest. "The money is being legalized through the proper taxes. After that, I'll decide what to do with it." "Do you already have some ideas?" "A few, but I want to wait for this whole situation to settle before making final decisions." Jennifer nodded. "Dad, no matter what happens with the money, I want you to know how sorry I am for doubting you, and that I want to try to rebuild our relationship. Jennifer, that's all I've ever wanted. A daughter who cared about me as a person, not as a source of benefits. I've always cared, Dad, I just lost my way." It was the first genuine moment of connection William had shared with any of his children since the discovery of the vault. 2 weeks later, Vincent was arrested by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The investigations revealed that he and his associates had run similar schemes in at least 6 other US cities, always targeting families of Italian immigrants. The documents Vincent had shown to William's children were analyzed by experts and declared forgeries. The family tree, the marriage certificates, even the photo of Grace Mary had been digitally manipulated. "Vincent is far more sophisticated than we imagined," Dr. Wilson explained. "He has a team that produces extremely convincing fake documents. They research families for months before making contact, crafting personalized narratives for each situation." "And how did they find out about the vault?" "That's still under investigation, but it seems they have informants in banks and currency exchanges. When someone starts asking about converting old currencies or appraising gold, the information reaches them." Vincent's arrest had different effects on William's 3 children. Jennifer felt validated in her decision to distance herself from the scheme. Robert grew even angrier, insisting Vincent might have been legitimate if not for his father's interference. Christine was stuck in an uncomfortable middle ground, admitting they'd been deceived, but still resentful about losing the chance to get rich. "Dad," Robert said during a tense visit, "even if Vincent was a criminal, that doesn't change the fact there was real money in the vault." "So what?" "So you could have split it with us without involving the police." "Robert, you wanted me to share money I'd just discovered with a criminal who was blackmailing me?" "Not with Vincent, with your own children." "Oh, I see. You wanted me to give you a cut and send Vincent away?" "Exactly. And how was I supposed to explain to Vincent that he'd get nothing? You'd already given him power of attorney." Robert fell silent, realizing the impossibility of the situation he'd helped create. "Robert," William continued, "you teamed up with a criminal to pressure me. Once you did that, there was no easy way back." "Dad, we didn't know. He was a criminal." "You didn't know because you didn't want to. You were so focused on the chance for easy money that you didn't question a thing." 3 months later, with Vincent in jail and the investigation concluded, William finally had full legal control over the money found in the safe. After paying all due taxes, a significant amount still remained. Dr. Wilson helped him establish a plan to use the money responsibly. Part of it would be invested to ensure a comfortable retirement. Another portion would go to local charities. "And your children?" Dr. Wilson asked. "Will you leave any inheritance for them?" William thought carefully before answering. "I'll leave them the house and some personal savings, as I always planned, but the money from the safe will be used differently." "May I ask how?" "I'm thinking of creating a fund to help families of elderly people who were abandoned by their children. Something to ensure others in my situation don't endure the loneliness I went through." Dr. Wilson smiled. "That's a noble idea, Mr. Parker. It's a fair idea. That money brought me a lot of pain and revealed the worst in people I loved. Maybe it can do some good for other families." When William told his children about his plans for the money, their reactions were predictable. Robert was furious. "Dad, you're giving our money to strangers." "Robert, it's not your money. It never was. Dad, we're your children. We have a right to an inheritance. You'll inherit my house and my personal savings. The safe money isn't part of my personal legacy." Christine was disappointed but resigned. "Dad, I understand. You're hurt, but this feels like punishment." "Christine, it's not punishment. It's a conscious decision about how to use money that never should have existed in the first place." Jennifer, surprisingly, supported his choice. "Dad, I think it's a beautiful idea. After everything we've been through, using the money to help other families seem fitting." "Are you sure, Jennifer? It'll be a lot of money." "Dad, these past weeks have taught me money can destroy families if people let it. Maybe it's better spent building others up." 6 months later, the Abandoned Elderly Support Foundation was up and running, providing financial and emotional assistance to seniors who had been neglected by their families. William became the foundation's volunteer administrator, finally, finding a purpose that gave meaning to the traumatic events he'd endured. Jennifer became a regular presence in his life again, visiting weekly and even helping with some foundation activities. Robert and Christine kept their distance, still resentful over the loss of money that was never theirs. "Dad," Jennifer said one day as they sorted through foundation paperwork, "do you regret anything?" "What do you mean?" "Finding the safe. Everything that happened after. If you could go back, would you do it differently?" William thought for a long moment. "You know, Jennifer, discovering that safe was terrible and wonderful at the same time." "How so?" "It was terrible because it revealed my wife had lied about her identity, that your love for me was conditional, and that I was lonelier than I'd realized." "And what was wonderful?" "It was wonderful because it forced me to face the truth. And because in the end it gave me the chance to do something truly meaningful with my life." "What about Robert and Christine? They'll find their way, or they won't. But I can't spend my life trying to earn love from people who only care when there's something to gain." "Dad, can I say something?" "Of course. I admire you. Most people in your position would have taken Vincent's deal just to keep the peace in the family." "Jennifer, sometimes keeping the peace means accepting injustice, and I was tired of accepting." "Are you happy now?" William looked around the small office where the foundation operated, seeing the thank you letters from families they had helped, the photos of seniors who now had a better quality of life. "You know, Jennifer, for the first time in years, I can honestly say yes, I'm happy. Even without Robert and Christine, especially without Robert and Christine the way they've become. I'd rather have one daughter who truly loves me than 3 children who only come around when they need something." That night, William went down to the basement once more. The safe was still there, now empty and useless, but it no longer stirred any emotion in him. It was just a piece of metal that had served its purpose. He closed the basement door and went back upstairs to his study, where Mrs. Margaret waited for their evening coffee, as had become their routine. "How was your day, William?" "Good, Margaret. We helped 2 more families today." "And your children?" "Jennifer came by to help this morning. The others, well, maybe one day they'll understand." "Don't you miss them?" "I miss the idea I had of them, but I don't miss the reality of who they actually are." Mrs. Margaret nodded understandingly. "Sometimes the greatest disappointments free us for the greatest joys." "That's true. If they hadn't shown their true colors, I never would have had the courage to use the money for something truly meaningful. And you never would have discovered you could be happy alone." "Not alone," William corrected, smiling at his neighbor. "Surrounded by the right people." 2 weeks later, William received an unexpected call. It was Robert. "Dad, can I come over? I need to talk to you." "Of course, son." Robert arrived an hour later, looking humbler than William had seen him in years. "Dad, I came to apologize." Robert, "No, Dad. Let me speak. I spent months angry at you, thinking you'd ruined our chance to be rich. But today I saw a news report about the foundation you started. And I saw a photo of an 80-year-old woman being cared for by her children after the foundation paid for home renovations. And I thought, that could have been my grandmother. Or you in a few years." William stayed silent, letting Robert continue. Dad, I realized that while I was fighting for the right to easy money, you were using that same money to care for people who'd been abandoned. The way I abandoned you. Robert, you didn't abandon me, you just lost your way for a while. I did abandon you, Dad. And not just these past few weeks, it's been years. I only ever showed up when I needed something. Robert, Dad, I want to ask you something. Can I be your son again? For real this time? William felt his eyes fill with tears. Robert, you never stopped being my son. I was just waiting for you to remember that. Dad, can I help with the foundation? Not for the money, Robert quickly clarified, but because it's the right thing to do. Of course you can. There's always work for those who truly want to help. Robert hugged his father for the first time in years. Dad, thank you for not giving up on our family, even when we gave up on you. Robert, family isn't about giving up, it's about giving endless chances for people to find their way back. A month later, Christine also showed up at his door, bringing the grandchildren William hadn't seen in so long. Dad, can I come in? Always, sweetheart. Dad, I talked to Robert and Jennifer about the foundation, about everything that happened, and I feel awful. Christine? No, Dad. I need to say this. You spent your whole life taking care of us, and when you finally had the chance to do something special, our first reaction was to try and take it from you. Honey, you didn't know? Yes, we did, Dad. Deep down, we knew Vincent was shady. We knew you were being pressured, but we chose to ignore that because we wanted the money. William saw that Christine was genuinely remorseful, and now, dear, what do you want? I want to be your daughter again, and I want my children to know the grandfather they have. The grandfather who uses his good fortune to help others. Christine, you've always been welcome here. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you forgive us? Really? William looked at his daughter, then at his grandchildren playing shyly in the living room. Christine, I forgave you all a long time ago. I was just waiting for you to forgive yourselves. How did you know we'd come back? I didn't, but I hoped. Because beneath all the greed and confusion, you're still my children. And I raised you to be good people. Even after everything we did, especially after everything you did. Good people sometimes make bad choices, but they always find their way back. 6 months later, the whole family gathered for the first anniversary of the Abandoned Elderly Support Foundation. Jennifer, Robert, and Christine had become active volunteers, each contributing their unique skills. Dad, Jennifer said during the anniversary ceremony, when I think about everything that happened this past year, it still feels surreal. Why? Because it started with a discovery that almost destroyed our family and ended with something that brought us closer than ever. Jennifer, the discovery didn't almost destroy our family. It revealed our family had been broken for a long time. What we did afterward is what built a real family. Robert approached, carrying a commemorative plaque. Dad, the Foundation's board voted unanimously. We want to name the main program the William Parker Senior Dignity Program. Robert, that's not necessary. Yes, it is, Dad. You turned something terrible into something beautiful. You deserve to be remembered for that. Christine arrived with the grandchildren, who now visited their grandfather every week. Dad, the kids made something for you. What is it? She unfolded a drawing the children had made, showing a house with smiling people all around. It's our family, Grandpa, said the youngest granddaughter, after you taught us that family means taking care of each other. William felt his chest tighten with emotion. And you really learned that? Yes, said the oldest grandson. Mom said you taught her too. That night, after everyone had left, William sat in his favorite armchair, looking around the room that a year ago had been empty and silent. Now there were photos of his grandchildren on the table, foundation projects scattered on the coffee table, and a sense of life and purpose he hadn't felt in years. The phone rang. It was Margaret. William, how was the ceremony? It was perfect, Margaret. The whole family was here. And how do you feel? Grateful. Very grateful. Grateful for what? For finding that safe in the basement. Even after everything that happened? Especially after everything that happened. If it weren't for that discovery, I'd still be a lonely old man ignored by his children. Now I'm a man with a real family and a real purpose. And Vincent? Vincent did me a favor without knowing it. He forced me to choose between being a victim of circumstances or taking control of my own life. And the money, do you regret not sharing it with the kids from the start? Not at all. If I'd split the money right away, they never would have learned the lessons they did, and I never would have discovered their true character. And now we have a family built on genuine love, not financial interest. That's worth far more than any amount of money. The next morning, William woke up early and went down to the basement one last time. He had decided it was time to close that chapter completely. He looked at the empty safe, remembering all the emotions he had felt when opening it for the first time. Fear, excitement, confusion, hope. Now, he felt only peace. He closed the safe and placed the wooden planks back in place, hiding it once more. Perhaps 40 years from now, another homeowner would discover it, but for now it had nothing left to offer, except lessons about what truly matters in life. He went upstairs to the kitchen, where he prepared coffee for two. As had become routine, Mrs. Margaret would arrive soon for breakfast, and afterward, they would go together to the back office for another day of meaningful work. The phone rang. It was Jennifer. "Dad, good morning. Just calling to confirm Sunday lunch." "Of course, sweetheart. Are you all coming?" "Everyone. Robert said he's bringing the lasagna you love, and Christine is bringing the kids to spend the afternoon." "Perfect. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Are you happy?" William looked around his kitchen, where 2 cups waited to be used, where a table would soon be set for 6 on Sunday, where the sounds of life and love had begun echoing through the walls again. "Jennifer, I'm happier than I ever imagined. I could be at 68, even after everything that happened. Sweetheart, all that pain was worth it, because it brought me here. It brought me to a real family and a life with meaning. Dad, thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up on us. For being strong enough to teach us what really matters. Jennifer, you all taught me. You taught me that it's never too late to start over, and that a real family can be built at any time." After hanging up, William poured the coffee and sat at the table, waiting for Mrs. Margaret to arrive. Through the window he could see the street bustling, people starting another day. But for the first time in years, he didn't envy them. He didn't wish to be somewhere else or someone else. He was exactly where he was meant to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. The discovery of the safe in the basement had started as a curse disguised as a blessing. But it had turned into the greatest blessing of his life, the chance to discover who he truly was and what he was capable of when forced to make difficult choices. And most importantly, he had learned that it's never too late to have a real family, built on solid foundations of genuine love, mutual respect, and shared purpose. The doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Margaret, punctual as always, ready to begin another day of meaningful work alongside the friend who had learned to turn adversity into wisdom. "Good morning, William. How are you feeling today?" Like a man who found exactly what he was looking for when he stopped searching for the wrong things. They smiled at each other and headed to the kitchen, where 2 cups of coffee waited to begin another day of a life that had become exactly what it was meant to be. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave your honest thoughts in the comments. Do you think William made the right decision by using the money to help other seniors? We'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartfelt stories.